Hey guys, this is Jonathan McCormack. I'm an attachment specialist in New York. You can find me at attachmenthealinghelp.com. I mostly do ideal parent figure protocol and parts work. But for this, I'd like to talk about spirituality, how it relates specifically to attachment problems. I'd like this video to be more about non-duality, Vedanta, and I'll do a video on Buddhism and Christianity. Firstly, I'm not an expert. I do have some occasionally in-depth experiences with all three traditions, and also I have a in-depth, at least intellectual appreciation. But I've also been in these traditions, all three. And this will primarily be based on a book called The Yoga of Relationships by Isabella Viglietti-Swartz. You can find her at, I think it's shiningworld.com, but I'll put in the links. Now, I'm doing this because a lot of my clients are into non-duality and kind of Eastern spirituality, and these things are thousands of years old, and indeed, they have some important lessons for relationships. Non-duality, basically this is the fact that we're all one, you know. The idea is that we identify with our emotions, our mind, our body, but actually we're something else. They claim we are pure awareness, and the mind, emotions, and body are in this pure awareness. Those things are things we have, but they're not us. They come and go. And Vedanta, well, that's just referring to, if you wish to call it Hinduism, that was a kind of a term that came about in the 1800s. But basically, there's a philosophy behind a lot of texts from India, and you can take that philosophy and just kind of make it very rational and prescriptive, you know. And that's kind of what Vedanta is. And again, the idea is that if you follow this way, you'll realize you're not truly separate. You'll realize, and this will be knowledge you will gain. The other reason I'm doing this is because people will come to me and they'll want to get psychologically attuned, psychologically secure. The truth is, a lot of people won't say this, but a lot of other things might be going on in our lives. We do indeed need to have some internal security, but also you need to have skills. How do you speak to people? How do you make a request? How do you assert your boundaries? No one taught me. I had to learn. Thirdly, well, what's going on in your life? You know, you can be a very internally secure person, but there are things you need. And Johann Hari speaks about this. The Human Givens movement speaks about this. And there are things like you don't need all of these. You need about 3 or 4. But these are the things that allow external security. And they are partner, at least a friend. You want 3 to 5. At least a job. Be nice if it was one where you made some progress. A hobby. Be nice if it was one you shared with people, and again, you saw progress. This creates positive affect when you see yourself progressing toward a goal. Fifth, someplace in society. It doesn't have to be high, but like, this is who I am, and society acknowledges it. And spirituality, that's very important. That's what this will be about. And some would say, perhaps privacy, or some place that's just for me. Okay, so this will be spirituality, and that is one of the things. If you don't have any partner, friends, job security, spirituality, so on and so forth, you can be very internally secure. But how secure will your relationships be? Most long-term marriages, each person has 5 friends. And if you don't have that, you're going to lean on your partner too much, you know. So in a The other thing I'll say is you have to be careful, because this is how it looks if you're very spiritual, in these traditions. And the truth is, we're just people. A lot of people get into these traditions, and all of a sudden they get a little, egaic. They all of a sudden start thinking they're the master, and they kind of lord it over the other person. I am just so enlightened. You have to realize X, Y, and Z. That doesn't help at all. And I can tell you, Dan Brown, who taught Ideal Parent Figure Protocol, people like that, Jack Kornfield, the great Buddhist teacher, even he with all his experience couldn't have a healthy relationship. It didn't help. In fact, John Kornfield even once said, if you go into a cave for 30 years, you can come out enlightened, but you can also come out and be the most enlightened a-hole. Yeah, because relationships deal with the relational ego. Okay, so a non-dual relationship, if there were two people who are just very advanced, the ideal would be you don't see the other person as something other than yourself. You understand that what you're loving in that person isn't in that person, it's in you. That person is an expression, even in Vedanta you can use the word God if you wish. That stands for something, but you're seeing kind of the God in them, and it's the God in you recognizing the God in them, God recognizing God, something like that. It's the same being shining within both of you, Now, what do we usually do? The moment you start paying attention and relating to that person through differences, all of a sudden the relationship has become dual. You're there, I'm here, you have something I want. It's not inside me. It must be inside you. And how do I get it? Transaction. In real relationships, there must be, because we're not enlightened, some transaction. But the less the better. The moment you perceive and concentrate on these differences, the more transactional the relationship will become. And you can ask yourself, it's a great practice, if you're trying to extract from others, and what are you trying to extract? And people are different. Respect, security, love, worthiness, and see where you're trying to extract that. What are you trying to get? That's the parts of your relationship that most likely have the most conflict, When you transact, you don't know that you're already whole. You're already complete. And again, I'm not a terribly spiritually advanced person. So again, this is mostly going by people who are much higher up than me and people I respect, and I will take their word for it. But they say, and I've had some experiences where I indeed have experienced this, that I'm whole and complete in myself. Little glimpses though, just with me. But if you don't know that you're whole and complete, a Christian would, I suppose, would say, if you don't know that you're a beloved child of God, and He already loves you no matter what, as long as you take that connection and accept that grace. But as long as you don't know you're complete and whole, you will try to obtain. And the big four things you try to obtain are attention, love, care, deeds, and a fifth, acceptance. You're trying to gain acceptance, trying to get them to do something for you, trying to get some care, some love, or even just some attention. And the truth is, if that's the way you are, you probably don't offer these things willingly yourself. You probably look to extract them. A strange spiritual law, I was told, and it seems true, that if you feel you're deeply unloved, you might be the type of person who has trouble freely offering love. And you might have very good reasons. Perhaps people manipulated you. Perhaps people used you. Despite the reasons, oftentimes what we're trying to get from someone is the very thing we ourselves have trouble giving to others, And when you're looking to extract from others, you have an extracting mindset, others pick that up and they pull away, right? People are very needy and other people can notice it. They kind of pull away and, that's the very thing a needy person is terrified of. So it's kind of self-fulfilling, and they look back and they say, boy, all my relationships have people pulling away from me. It must be because there's something wrong with me. It must be because I'm not worthy. Nope, that ain't it. It's because you're looking to extract something from them, and they feel that, A non-dual relationship, again, this is the ideal, the thing you wish to keep in mind as an ideal, recognizing we're just people. Ideally, it's someone in complete non-duality, or just means you're devotional. You offer every action freely to the other or apparent other. You just as they are. I'm going to love you just the way you are, not because X, Y, and Z, not because of something I get from you, although I may love those things, I may value them, I don't need them. And so I just can just give, It's about serving, not extracting, serving the other. And a lot of people believe they're serving the other, and indeed they are not. They're in fact trying to manipulate it. This is true with people, men who are very anxious, and women do not trust them, and they say, but I'm such a nice guy. I showed up to the door with flowers for this girl. Yes. Why? You don't know if you like her? First date? No. You're trying to manipulate her. Think of a woman. I once had a woman say, I can't trust my husband. Oh, why? Well, I cook him meals. Every meal's great. Well, if you say that, that's BS. Every meal is not perfect. You certainly have a preference, and she does not know what's in your mind. She cannot trust you. Right? Now, when you have this extracting mindset, there's an energy. And when you're needy, all energy flows out. And when this happens, the other person unconsciously allows their energy to flow in to balance it. This is the avoidant anxious dance from a spiritual perspective. If you don't know, an anxious person is someone who likes to cling, is very needy. The avoidant is someone who just dismisses that, I don't need anything. And they're terrified of people getting too close. They're terrified of someone coming and stealing their energy. They need a lot of time for themselves. And what happens with an anxious avoidant, the anxious, all this needy energy flows out and they feel drained. And then the avoidant comes and that energy flows from them. Now they're drained and you feel energized. Oh, thank goodness, The anxious person's now energized. And there's a feminine masculine flow to this, a polarity that I would argue. Not necessarily tied to biological sex, by the way. So what I just described is a codependent attachment style. An avoidant, and an avoidant was someone who may have had a parent who was so anxious, so always forget about your boundaries. I'm just going to walk in. I knew a guy who his mother would bust in on him while he was bathing in the shower at 16. Say, Mom, I need some privacy. Oh, I'm your mother. I've seen her. Come on, you're my child. No sense of boundaries. That person never developed inner boundaries, so his energy could just get sucked out by any needy person. And so he does need a lot of time for himself. He doesn't need to stay away, you know. And this is kind of the energetic, the flow pattern between anxious and avoidant. And a codependent view. A codependent will only feel okay if the other person is okay, you know. Like, their day is miserable if their partner's miserable. Their partner controls their mood style. An avoidant just focuses on themselves feeling okay and doesn't care about them. You know, you see an avoidant, their partner is upset. Well, you know, I hope you're not upset. I wish you weren't. There's nothing I can do about it. I'm sorry you feel that way. But they don't let it affect them. They're very in themselves. They don't open up. Because if they open up, that energy will flow out and they will feel weak and feel overwhelmed, you know. The non-dual attachment is secure. That's a secure attachment. What is secure? You don't have to be non-dual or any of that. You don't even have to be spiritual to have a secure relationship. It's basically, you know you're okay. You know you're okay. And if you're not okay, it's okay not to be okay. It's okay. Hey, I got my issues, I have my problems, but I'm honest about it. I'm open about it. I'm okay being not okay. That's fine. And also, when you serve others, it's from fullness, you know, that overflowing cup. Like, I know who I am. I know that it's inside of me. And when I give from my fullness. It does not deplete me like an avoidant. Neither am I doing it to manipulate you like an anxious person, you know? So, ideally, I don't need anything, and I'm already satisfied. And serving the other person, paying attention to the other person, those are opportunities, you know. Where's my attention? Ultimately on a higher idea. This serving, you know. So, how do you know if this person's the right one? Okay, well, if you meet them and within the first week or 2 or 3, you are heads and heels in love. And boy, you're already sleeping with each other. And that's the best sex you've ever had. And the intimacy, and you ever been on the date and they date vomit? In other words, they tell you everything about themselves, just open wide up. Terrible idea, because your intimacy is happening way too quick, and you will fall deep. What do you want to feel like? Well, secure. Okay? You want to feel like when I'm in their presence, I can just breathe. I just feel so comfortable. Think about that. For me, it was when I was with my grandpa. Always with my grandpa, I just felt, you know. And in that state, if I wanted to give, I could. And I was just free to do it, you know. And this will be unconscious, and that's why I say look into the body. You know, when you're dating someone, it's, of course, low anxiety, butterflies. But do you feel that safety, that calm? Do you feel that no one is, a Vedantin would say, there's no one pulling on their subtle body. The subtle body would be the body where the emotional self is, more or less. And this is, you know. Yeah, and that wholeness, that completeness, it's communicated by what? A lightness, an ease, you know. Helping people around you can actually be very dangerous. If your need for virtue, if it's for virtue and not necessarily for their greater good, or if it's just for you to feel good. And believe me, I fell into this trap when I was younger. I would volunteer at the soup kitchens, and everyone would know about it because I would tell everyone, what were you doing Wednesday? Watching television? Well, I was serving the poor, you know. Just out of my magnanimous soul, just because I'm that type of person. And of course, I look down on other people. Oh, these people watching television. Oh, these peasants. You can't believe. I wish they were as aligned as me. If only. I mean, the biggest egomaniacs I've ever met have been in charities. I've done plenty of charity work. Biggest egomaniacs. I mean, they love themselves. They think they're great for going out and doing X, Y, and Z. And if that's your attitude and you think, I'm doing this just to help the other person, I am gonna do this, my girl is out there, I'm gonna take her laundry, I'm gonna do it just for her. Yeah, and I'm gonna be the nice guy. I'm gonna buy this. In fact, I had a guy, and it was Valentine's Day, knew the girl 3 months, and he goes, I have this big thing planned, and I'm gonna take her out to dinner. One of these most expensive restaurants, and then I'm going to take her to here, and it's this firework display that's very expensive to get into with a laser show. Why are you doing that, my friend? Then he invited her on a trip, and afterwards I'm going to give her the ticket to the trip. We're going to go. Well, they hadn't slept together yet. I wonder, perhaps, his motivation? No. It's not about that. It's not about that. Okay, what happened? I went through all that, went on the trip. She didn't sleep with him. Fury. Do you know how much money I spent on this? Do you want it? Whoa. I thought you were just giving it. We fool ourselves. I lie to myself. We fool ourselves. The ego's so tricky. I mean, it's something to really be aware of. But also the opposite of that is the need to be needed. The need to be needed, If you're aware that you're complete and whole, being needed doesn't add to you. I've had a lot of people tell me, and they'll be like, well, what do you look for in a relationship? Well, I really need them to need me. And I usually give my little speech. Well, now, when the mind hears need, it thinks necessary for survival. Ooh. If you need love, you need a relationship, your unconscious freaks out. And when you go on that date, you are going to be frightened and anxious. And if you see that person pulling away, oh, they have what I need. I won't survive. No. Forget the word need. Absent need, because you don't need it. If you needed it, you'd be dead now. Okay? So you don't need it. People say, I need to quit smoking. Stop. You don't need to. And if you keep telling yourself and keep smoking, the unconscious won't believe it, because obviously you don't need it. No, relationships are valuable, but they tell me, I need that person to need me. That's not healthy, and you don't want that. That won't work out, unless you're honest with yourself and face that aspect. You're going to continually look to other problems to solve your problems. And notice this, you'll project your limitations onto them, And by the way, this is a big problem with Buddhists, meditators, spiritual people, spiritual bypassing. They bypass all their psychological issues, all their relational issues, but they can meditate at very high levels. They're bypassing things, So what can you do about this? We don't know ourselves very well. So if you can, be fearless. Find people who are safe you can talk to, a sister, a best friend, and ask them, even a friend, where do I try to extract from you? Where am I doing this in our friendship? I'm just trying to be a better person. And please be honest with me. And they might be like, well, you kind of only call me, when you're in trouble. You rarely ask me how I'm doing until the very end where the conversation's over. It feels like it doesn't feel very balanced to me, Be fearless, and be honest with yourself. Also, don't believe just because they said so, But in general, if you ask questions and you get the same response from 3 people, one person says you're a duck. Look at it. 2 people say you're a duck. Really look at it. 3 people say you're a duck. Best start quacking, because you are. If you get angry in a relationship, We all do. What's there? You didn't get what you wanted. You had a need that was unmet. You know? If you want freedom, you want a free relationship, you have to give it to the other person. One person can't have freedom to do whatever they want. You know, this is a big question I get. My partner thinks that I put too much pressure on them, and they're not free to be themselves, and they don't like when I question X, Y, and Z. Okay, then I must get the exact same freedom. You know, when you ask me for something, I feel pressured that you can't do that anymore. You know, it has to be balanced like that. At the high spiritual view, they say that you have everything you already need. If you wish to use the word God or this principle in the universe or the universe, there's something that takes care of life. You know, and you participate only when you're needed. Thus, you do not need to extract from your partner's time and energy. You know, it will show up. You know, if you feel not a need, if you feel like you really could use their energy, it will show up if it's meant to. And you kind of surrender to that, you know. You just show up and do your best, ideally not expecting any results. You know, like, boy, I'm going to do this nice thing, not to get something. Boy, I wish I could do it freely. But to be honest, I'm kind of hoping they notice, you know, and maybe kind of notice me, get back. Okay, but at least give it up to God, give it up to the universe. Again, this is the spiritual viewpoint. I'm more interested in the psychological aspects. But I will say, studying attachment, a God figure, a divine figure, can indeed be an attachment figure. And I've seen some researchers that go so far as to say, that's your main attachment figure as an adult and not your father. I don't know about that, or mother. But it's important. It's important, you know. Now, if you have this attitude, if you just unhook from others your demand on them to provide a certain outcome, I'm going to do X and you are going to be happy. You know, I'm just going to do X. I hope they're pleased, but whatever happens, happens. Well, that's interesting because you'll have an entire different perspective on so many other things. Whatever you receive, you'll be grateful as a gift. And the truth is, and this is something I do know, you'll only be at peace, or my experience has been that I've only been at peace when I've learned to receive life as a gift, not as a burden. So I might go 3 years with no relationship, and I could concentrate on not having a relationship, or I could receive that as a gift to work on myself, a bitter pill, if I really want to get into a relationship, and vice versa. I could be in a relationship where I really want some time for myself to work on my own projects. And maybe that's what I need to do. But whatever, you receive it gratefully as a gift. That's a practice. If you believe that's BS and there ain't no God, there ain't no, fine. But if you think that way, try it on, think that way, and see how your life changes. You know, see how your attitude then affects your relationships, you know. Because when you don't need your relationship to provide that fullness, it can then be free. Love can never be coerced. It truly can't. And that's the irony. I want love, and I want to give love. And you want love so much, you manipulate the other person to get it. And what happens is you can never get it. Why? Love can only be given as a gift, and it can only be received as a gift. You know? The opposite is also true. You don't need to fix them. Something the anxious person's always doing. Boy, this is huge. You know, boy, I'd like to break up with my boyfriend, girlfriend, whoever. But boy, I'm afraid they'll get suicidal. You know, they have a history of self-harming, a history of being institutionalized. I'm afraid they'll break down. They've had mental breakdowns before. And it's my responsibility, and it never is. It really isn't. It's your responsibility to respond with love. But I have to tell you, oftentimes the most loving thing you can do is detach. You can detach with love. You can do that. And if you're spiritually enlightened, I'm told that you'll also see the other person is actually also completely whole and doesn't need you for anything on some level. Kind of hard to wrap my mind. I'm not enlightened, but that's the ideal perspective you want to move towards. So, I just invite you even right now just to kind of pause, reflect. Well, where do you transact in your relationships? This is great if you get out a pen, paper, now, do this later. Write it down. What is on your shopping list to obtain from others? If you're unhappy in the relationship, ask yourself, where am I not getting what I want? What need do I think is not being fulfilled? When I yelled at them, I walked away, I was upset. What didn't I get? Were they not paying attention to me? Did they not do the thing I asked? That will bring into focus your dualistic view. Concentrating on that, on yourself, you, not what your partner did, you. It brings into focus your dualistic worldview. And it removes the focus from blaming others what they must give you. Even though they did not agree with you. They did not agree to do that. That's the other part. I really don't care your mental illness or if you're this attachment, that, if you can be honest and express it and take responsibility, you can have a good relationship. But those are skills. They're never taught. They're rarely modeled. So there's skills that, boy, I had to learn and you can learn too. But, just one example, if you wish to, I believe, I used to be a dating coach and I used to do intentional dating for people with attachment issues. And, one thing you do is the first date, have fun. 10 minutes, and you tell your expectations. This is what a relationship looks like to me. My name is, I'm into this spirituality. I don't want to move, X, Y, and Z. I'd like to get to know someone for about 3 months. And if at that point we decide we want to take it further, well, then we will. Then we make it just you and I. We make it exclusive, and we make that decision. And, for me, I would say, at that point you want to get sexual, this, that, the other thing we can discuss. But whatever your thing is, whatever it is, expectations, because those unwritten rules, they are a love killer, And the interesting thing is, another question to ask is, what are you looking for? I mean, what are you looking for in life, in a relationship? Do you want freedom? Freedom from dependence on need? Is that what you're looking for, freedom? Or do you think you'll find what you're looking for when you find that perfect person? That's one of the things that we have to decide. Avoidance. They want freedom and a relationship. They feel comfortable. They don't want someone in their room, but they also don't want no one. They would like to have someone in the house. Know that they're in the house. That's close enough and far enough, to feel comfortable. And this is something I see both sexes, but often men. And I say, listen, do you want a relationship? Is that comes with responsibilities and you're bound. Or would you like freedom? Freedom from that need. You feel lovesick, 2 things you can do. Try to find it in a partner or try to deal with that internally. That's up to you. Most people don't chase a relationship or enter into a relationship for freedom. Most people enter into a relationship to escape a feeling of need. Most people get into a relationship to escape a feeling of dissatisfaction with themselves. And these relationships, if you think in terms of samsara, the whole Buddhist and Hindu concept, those relationships are based on preoccupations, based on desire and need, a desire to gain, not to give. Relationships create bondage, period, full stop, unless you're an enlightened person. It creates bondage. Well, is that what you want? If it is, it could be a beautiful thing, But you need to know beforehand and make that decision. Love, your desire for love will never go away. Love always endures because it's the nature of life. It's who we are, though. Love, you want to ideally become love. You want to be the love that you seek. It can never be something you work to gain. That's the big lie. Hey, if you are good looking enough and get that job, get that money, you can earn that love. Never works. Truth is, ideally you would give it to yourself first. And that's with everything. If I do X, Y, and Z, then I will gain this feeling. No. Just give yourself that feeling. Give yourself that feeling. There's methods for doing that that I practice. Just for example, you can, close your eyes. Imagine when you felt loved. Really feel that. Now imagine going back to when you were a child, just born. Imagine being born with that feeling of love. Then imagine flooding your life with that love. Imagine being a toddler, child, grade school, high school. Love, 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 love. Always being loved. Even projected into the future. Imagine your future. Imagine that, but with that feeling of love. Imagine you walking through your life, your job, with your partner. Give that love to yourself first, and you can do it. There are methods. So if you're looking for love and security, I would suggest the last place to look for security is in another person, is in a relationship. Especially these days. You're going to have to take a risk. It's going to be a chance. And the truth is you can find that nowhere than yourself. I'm not talking about loving yourself. I'm talking about more, if you wish to say, a curiosity about yourself, looking into yourself with respect and regard, things like that, The truth is, if you're in a relationship, you will be out of it one day. Other person gonna die, or you. So I would, but if you're this very expansive thing, like I don't need this, but I just have it. Well, if it goes away, you would not feel abandoned, like a little child gets abandoned. You would feel very sad. You just lost something valuable. Yeah. But it wouldn't be devastating. Oh my Lord, I'm going to die. Little children die when they're abandoned. The crows come and lift them off. Adults do not. No one who's 50 years old and says, I am an orphan. My parents just died. No, you're 50, my dude. You're good. So what is the real motivation for chasing a relationship? You need to work that out. And most people haven't. And they just go for relationships. And then they look for spiritual reasons to justify, I'm in this relationship. But you know what? I need to stay because I need to be there for her, for him. It's really for them. And I don't want to be selfish, Okay, Well, if you're in a relationship that you feel compelled to maintain by getting the other person's approval or disapproval, it will not be a happy affair, It doesn't matter if you're in the relationship to give that person approval. They really need me. They have such little confidence. Or you're trying to get, either way, you're dependent on that person for your sense of self, Any dependence on objects, and a relationship's an object, isn't going to bode well for resolving the problem of who you are. Truly who you are. So, Mrs. Schwartz in her book has a couple tips. What can you do? And she says, 1, stop trying to manipulate relationships to get results you want. Like try to just give freely, don't expect anything, and just try that. Try that as a practice. 2, stop using the carrot and stick to manipulate others. The guy tries to, the girl with the low dress trying to, nothing wrong with that. I'm not gonna, and that's fine. But still. And also, the third thing she recommends is to use praise and blame sparingly. I thought that was so interesting. Because if you take parenting courses, the psychology of parenthood, they actually say not to praise your children. And I thought, wow, what does that mean? And I've tried this. Indeed, what you can do is instead of saying, good job, you cleaned your room, they say, well, you ought to say, hey, I noticed you cleaned your room. You noticed it. You don't want them to be motivated to please you. Oh, Daddy, I'm such a good little girl. I'm such a good little boy because I made Daddy happy. I made Mommy happy. Oof. No. You wish to foster independence. But you do allow them to know that you noticed it. And so you are giving attention. And attention is indeed a pure form of love. I do believe that. I believe giving your real attention is a form of love. True attention. Because care is almost involved in that. And 4, she says, take care of your own karma, dharma, whatever, your own stuff, and let the other person take care of theirs. There's a division of labor here. That's interesting. I rarely do couples counseling, but I know a little bit, and I've done some. I just don't like it. But the first thing I will say is, okay, here's the first rule. You take responsibility for your triggers, and you also, both of you. What does that look like? You don't say, well, she was late, and this made me so angry. She made me say, stop. She didn't do nothing. You're responsible for your own emotions. What do? Hey, when you're late or think you're going to be late, this is magic words. I know it's not your intention. It's not like someone's sitting there thinking, I'm going to piss them off. Sometimes that happens. I know a few. Most likely, we're going to be generous with our interpretation, right? You want a relationship of generosity. And you're going to say, I know it wasn't your intention, but when you do that, I feel very angry. And it's not your problem. And I know you're not doing that. It's me. So, and then here you go. You express a desire. So it would really help me, and I love how you help me, if you could give me a heads up beforehand. I know it's not your responsibility. I'm just asking if you can. That would be a big help. So it's true. If the person asks for help, that's fine. But I can tell you the whole nagging and needy, and don't believe it's just women who do this, but it's the classical, the man is trying to says, like, I'm going to work out and lose weight. And then all of a sudden she's like, oh, honey, it's a lot on the plate there. And she's just trying to express her love. And like, boy, I'm going to help my man. I'm going to help my love. And he's just like, I did not ask you for that information. Why are you telling me? That's the difference between men and women. Briefly, men are trained not to ask for help, okay? And there's good reasons for this. We're culturally conditioned to it. Why? Well, and men will offer help. And when they do, it's usually to put the other person down. I've seen this a million times. So say I'm working on my car and someone comes over and he goes, hey, do you need a hand with that? What does that mean? You've just implied several things. 1, clearly you don't think I'm doing it right. 2, clearly you think you can do it better. 3, well, if I needed help, I would ask. So you just implied that I'm, intimidated by you? That I wouldn't ask? That I'd be afraid to ask? Why would you offer? If I need help, I would say, hey, man, can you help me out? What are you saying? I don't have the confidence to do that? And men, I've seen this like in the office, like, oh, hey, Johnson, by the way, if you need any help with that report, come to me because I know you're fairly incompetent and I'm great at doing that. Just want to let you know because I'm such a great person. And they do it in front of others. And the guy feels terrible. Meanwhile, women are like coming with all these groceries or cleaning the dishes, and they're like, why does he not offer help? He can clearly see I need it. Clearly see. Obviously I need help. And he doesn't offer. The other scenario is he's fixing something, a hip maybe hurts, it's both, And she goes, it'd actually be a lot easier if you did X, Y, and Z. And she might be 100% correct. And he gets upset, like, I'm doing it. If you want to do it, you do it. And she's like, wow, I just saw my love, and I just thought I would make his life easier. And that's how you speak to me? The good thing is you've just said, like, I don't trust you to do that right, in his mind. I don't trust you. I think you're going to screw it up. I don't think you'll do it as good. These are one of the things. Like, there's a couple things in the male-female dynamic that if you're a woman, just don't. If you don't need to, don't. Even if he's doing it's okay. Who cares? Who cares if he does it the long way or he doesn't do it perfectly? Unless it's a real need, important to you, and just let him do that. Don't try and make his life easier. He won't take it that way, Because there's a difference between the Bhagavad Gita, in fact, has a saying, everything follows its nature. So what good is control? You want to contribute, not coerce. To be collaborative. That's one of the main pillars. If you look up 3-pillar attachment theory, which I'm all about, the first pillar now is collaboration, So you share information to be helpful, not manipulative, And, a good thing to ask is, does this need to be said? Does this need to be said right now? Does this need to be said by me? Yeah. So it's about having the confidence that other people are equipped to solve their own problems. Maybe not as good as you think they should. Maybe in an efficient manner. Maybe in a way that you would not have done. But you need that anything less than this feeds the other person's insecurity. You've just made that other person insecurity. Oh, hey, honey, I don't know. Well, why don't you cook it this way? Why don't you do this? Honey, I know you have that problem at work. You know what you can do? Oh, no, now that other person's very insecure. You've deepened that person's confusion about who they are. Oh, maybe I can't handle this. Maybe I don't know. You've perpetuated their dependence upon you. And believe me, there are sociopaths and narcissists who know this very well and will use that to indeed do that. I once knew a woman who almost pretended to be sick because she was so afraid of her man leaving her. And this is a couple counseling. Guy comes in to see me, and I'm like, I know this, right? And I kind of like float a little idea, like, oh, so what do you think? And she's like, oh, she's faking it. She's faking this. I was like, oh, you know this. Why are you doing it? Why are you helping her when you know she doesn't need the help and she's faking it? He's like, because my father never helped my mother, and I vowed that I would always do something if asked. Always. Even if I know she didn't need it, I would do it. And this makes me such a good and spiritual person. Yeah, what it did is keep your wife a baby. That's what it did. Okay, guy? You have to sometimes do the hard things. And of course, being a father, by the way, whether you're female or male, just being the authority figure, whichever, means sometimes they're going to not like you. And a woman, especially, will not feel safe unless you can say, no, stop. I'm going to help you protect yourself. I'm not now, okay? A child will not feel safe if you just let them do whatever. A person will not feel safe if you just let the other person do whatever they want to you. They need to know. But at the same time, I will say, incompleteness, feeling incomplete, it doesn't always focus you to be anxious and cling. A lot of times it causes you to avoid relationships. This is the avoidant, right? So are you not in a relationship because you're trying to find yourself or you feel complete? Or, and a lot of avoidants don't know this, are you avoiding relationships because you're afraid of true intimacy and you have no idea how to open up and be loved? You know? And you feel, oh boy, I dodged a bullet with that girl. Am I right? She was so needy. And now I have all this time and space. Well, when you wake up and you're all alone, what do you call that? Freedom or loneliness? You know? The truth is you have not dodged a bullet at all. Your life will now be shallow. Because for life to be rewarding, it requires sacrifice. And this probably comes in with the Christian notion, but this is actually very prevalent, you know, that the hero sacrifices himself, the king sacrifices himself for the good of others. All relationships require work and some compromise. But mostly, they just require you to open yourself to giving and receiving love. That's the number one thing. Can you do that? Can you open yourself out? Well, that's risky, but you will not save your life by never risking it. You know, go ahead. Take your heart, put it in a little box. It'll never be hurt. Your life will be shallow. You'll be miserable. You know, you're right. You won't be wounded. You'll go into heaven and meet the pearly gates with a nice, shiny, perfect, you know, no dirt on me. Yeah, well, give me the wounded ones. You know, those are my people. And if you ask for love from someone, your heart becomes a target for pain, you know. And that's because that heightened feeling of love will sooner or later kind of, you know, it'll disappear. It's not, and thank God, because if you're really that intense love, you wouldn't get much work done, you know. The young lovers go in the forest, they love each other, look at each other, and then they turn towards something else. They turn towards a goal. And if you're in a relationship to get something, you at least need a third thing to pull both of you to another direction that you can both, that's why values are essential, you know. Unfortunately, lasting happiness and real happiness, not ecstasy and but, you know, contentment, and you know, it's seldom produced by people who don't really know what love is. You know, lonely people looking for love are always confused. If that person's very lonely, they probably will not be a very good partner. You know, because they're hoping you will fill that emptiness. And you can't. They will not allow you. If they can't fill the emptiness themselves, they can't allow that love in. Because if they could, they would be able to allow that love from another source in. So if the need for connection is built in, which it is, but dependence on others for happiness is what you think you need, that's a road to bondage and suffering. Seeking satisfaction of desires in relationships is not the way to lasting happiness. What is? Well, I'll talk about that next time. And we'll go over a couple of qualifications from a Vedanta and Eastern wisdom viewpoint is necessary. Thanks for listening. See you next time.